My main gig that I've had for the last 7 years was working with Lukas Nelson in Promise of the Rio, which is Lukas Nelson's, Willie Nelson's son. And I also work with an artist named Reinhart, who's incredible talent.
Yeah.
And I have done some work with Brittany Howard from the Alabama Shakes, which has been an incredible opportunity to do as well. And, you know, various others. I mean, I got to mix Willie Nelson and work with Neil Young and all that kind of stuff. So it's been kind of a crazy ride. I kind of built up a reputation around Hotel Cafe for running sound, and then we get asked for these one-off gigs like Katie Tunstall and the Lumineers and things like that. Were hiring me out to do stuff for them. I love to tell my dad, you know, I called him one day, I was like, well, Dad, construction didn't work out, I'm falling back on music. Artists are getting into touring, like, a lot of times they'll take on somebody that can wear multiple hats, and because I was able to do that, I became valuable in that way. It was me and a guitar tech doing everything, and we were like, we opened for Lenny Kravitz and Alicia Keys, I remember, at AT&T Park in San Francisco, like a stadium show.
You can't book everybody for a Monday. As a curator of this night, like, what would you say would be some, like, I guess, do's and don'ts for artists like trying to book a Monday, for example?
Here's the thing.
This is They're Good at That Shit, where I talk to artists who are killing the game and just try to learn some of their knowledge, their wisdom. My guest today, he travels all around doing sound for some huge artists that you would know. He also is the founder of Monday, super popular singer-songwriter showcase here in LA where we are. Mr. Joel Eckels, thank you so much for joining me, brother.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah.
Good to be here.
Yeah, man. All right, so first of all, you traveled around doing sound for some big name artists. Talk about some of those artists that you've done sound for and how that got started.
Yeah, I mean, how it got started was almost by accident, to be honest with you. I've been a musician, most of my life, and I moved to LA to pursue music, but I eventually got into booking the venues and doing production and doing sound, and that kind of just led into me getting asked to go out on the road. And then, I've been doing that now for the last decade, and got to work with, my main gig that I've had for the last 7 years was working with Lukas Nelson in Promise of the Rio, which is Lukas Nelson's, Willie Nelson's son, and he's incredibly talented. And that was just a great gig, and got to do lots of amazing stuff, playing stadiums to clubs to everything in between, and got to meet all kinds of incredible people and legends, people that I regard very highly, and so that was great. And I've also worked with a band. I currently work with a band called The Record Company, not to be confusing because they are called The Record Company. Their story is they were like, when they first started the band, they're like, nobody's going to sign this band, so we might as well be The Record Company. But then they ended up being pretty successful. So, and I also work with an artist named Reinhart, who's incredible talent. And I have done some work with Brittany Howard from the Alabama Shakes, which has been an incredible opportunity to do as well. And, various others. I mean, I got to mix Willie Nelson and work with Neil Young and all that kind of stuff. So it's been a kind of a crazy ride. Yeah, totally by accident.
Talk more about working with some of those like legends you're talking about, Neil Young, Willie Nelson.
Yeah, I mean being with Lukas Nelson, comes with, there's a whole family of people, and Lukas and his band for years before I worked with them were asked to be Neil Young's touring band, and they did records with Neil, and which is just what a cool opportunity that nobody gets, and so they've got a great story for the fact that just for somebody like Neil Young to ask a band like that to be, I mean, he's not going to just ask anybody. They're an incredible band, and so it made sense. And watching them with Neil was pretty incredible. And so that was great. And then Neil, that kind of happened because Neil's been involved in Farm Aid, which is a big festival that happens. It's a one-day festival that happens every year to raise money and awareness for family farmers, and American farming community and everything. And it's a really great cause and one of my favorite events to go to. And so Willie Nelson started that in the 80s, and it's actually the longest, I think one of the longest running festivals of all time or something like that. It's got a stat like that. But so Neil Young's involved in that, John Mellencamp, and now it's like Margot Price and Dave Matthews and people like that. So lots of people that we get to run into and work with because of that community. And then Willie also had the Outlaw Music Festival, which is a touring festival every year, and that would be packed with talent like Nathaniel Rateliff. We did a lot of stuff with him, and Sturgill Simpson, a lot of the country Americana, like the outlaw country stuff, which is what I love. So yeah, just because of that, I got to be around a lot of different people, and we did a couple shows where I got to, we had a whole event a couple times in Maui, for instance, to raise money for the fires or different things like that, and where I got to work and mix Willie Nelson, which is pretty awesome. And so yeah, it's kind of like who you're around, and luckily Lukas was just a special artist that is just regarded highly in the community and knows everybody because he grew up in it.
Right. And you said it all started by accident. Like, I'm kind of curious, like, kind of go back to that time, like when that like kind of first started, like what kind of happened?
Well, so I was always hustling it as a musician in bands and touring and things like that. And then I got an opportunity in around 2007 or 2008 to actually it was 2008 because I had a construction job. I was a finish carpenter for a long time, and that was my day gig. Okay. And I did pretty well in that, but that 2008 the housing market collapsed.
Oh right, yep.
And everything got weird, and people were just screwing each other out of money, and I just, for what I was in it for, it just was not worth it, because I'm putting in all of this work and effort as a means to an end to get to my music. It wasn't about building a carpentry career.
Right.
And so to do all that work and then get screwed out of the money and not get paid, I was just like, this is not happening. And so I had one last job that actually did, and it gave me some work for a while as things were declining, but then I position myself to get out of that completely. And funny enough, I love to tell my dad, I called him one day, I was like, well, Dad, construction didn't work out, I'm falling back on music. And so I ended up getting an opportunity to book a club, which started as a couple nights. It was a place called Room 5 on La Brea, just south of Beverly. Unfortunately, it's no longer there, but it was a really cool special room that I had been going to for a while, and there was some really good stuff going on, and it was kind of the beginnings of the scene with Hotel Cafe, and Room 5 was kind of almost like hand in hand with that because of the artists that were populating it, And so Jay Nash was the guy that was, he's a buddy of mine, singer-songwriter, great. He lives out east now, but at the time he was booking the whole calendar, and eventually he got so busy touring he just kind of gave up some of the nights to other promoters, and then eventually he wanted me to take over mainly the Monday night the Monday Night Songwriters in the Round series that he started that was really popular at that time. And so I took that over, and one of the reasons I could do it was because I could play and host and run sound at the same time, because there wasn't enough money in that night to pay a sound engineer. So it needed to be somebody that could perform and host and do the sound, and you just take the performer cut, So that was literally how I got into that. And I had already done some engineering, but I hadn't done a lot. And through that gig, I got pretty good at it, and then I was booking those nights, and eventually, just over, long story short, ended up taking over the whole. I got the other promoters out of there because they weren't really doing a great job, and I took over the whole calendar and was doing that for a while until it closed down in 2016. And in 2013, I decided to change that Monday Night Singer-Songwriter in the Round series to Monday. Wow. And that's how that came up. But yeah, I was just doing more and more audio gigs because I was just needing to make extra money, and it was there. And I was also looking at it like, well, if I'm booking the venue and running sound, then I can keep a quality control, you know, and that's just, and then I eventually moved over to Hotel Cafe and started working and booking over there as well. So
okay,
yeah.
And then did somebody in Lukas Nelson's camp happen to pop into one of those things, or how did that?
So well, what happened there? The evolution of that was, you know, I started getting asked because I kind of built up a reputation around Hotel Cafe for running sound, and then we'd get asked for these one-off gigs like Katie Tunstall and the Lumineers and things like that were hiring me out to do stuff for them. And then Haley Reinhart was the first one to take me out on tour.
Wow.
And she just was a big fan of me and was involved in the community. And Monday, she used to play Mondays all the time. And she was like, I'm doing this headliner tour and I want you to come out with me. And so I did. And I had been working with the record company at that time as well, who I was a big fan of, and became friends with those guys. And they said the same thing, like, as soon as we can afford to bring you out, we're bringing you out. So I was on the tour with Haley Reinhart and got the call from the record company. And they were like, we're ready, man. We're taking you out. You know, by the way, can you drive a Sprinter? And I was literally driving a Sprinter while I was taking that call. And so that turned into that. And that whole rest of the year was me working with the record company. And that was a big year for them. So that launched the whole thing. And then that following year, my name was put in the hat for Lukas Nelson. And he was coming off of touring with Neil Young. And they just filmed Stars Born, which him and the whole band were in that movie. They were the band in that movie.
Wow.
And he was getting ready to go into this album cycle, which ended up being a really big album cycle for him. And I got the gig tour managing and doing front of house and production management for Lukas, and that was my gig up until last March.
Wow, that's crazy. What all goes into that? So you said tour managing, production, like what is all of that?
Yeah, so the thing that happens is, especially nowadays with like budgets, or you know, I mean, after the pandemic, everybody had to downsize a little bit. So it became an advantage for me, and it's an advantage for anybody, although it can be a little brutal to wear multiple hats. And I've kind of always been that guy in a lot of ways. And tour managing, you know, basically is, well, production managing is everything that has to do with the show itself. So everything from what's happening on stage, the back line, the trucking, the, like, you know, all the things, the moving parts of the actual show, and the sound and what everybody needs to put on the show. And then tour managing is it's more of an all-encompassing thing, but that person's job ends up booking the flights and the hotels and making sure all the movements around the show, like going to and from the hotel, from the airport, like things like that, making sure meals are taken care of, and all the needs that are just personal needs of the infrastructure of the band and the tour. Like the tour manager is coordinating all that and making sure everything is in line for that. So I, at that time, was both.
Okay. Wow.
Which I still do to a certain degree. It's some artists it's easier than others. And with Lukas, it was just a lot of stuff going on, and that first year was a lot of work. And I mean, I got my ass handed to me in a lot of ways, but it was a good experience. And I mean, all in all, we got things done. I mean, it was me and a guitar tech doing everything, and we were like, we opened for Lenny Kravitz and Alicia Keys, I remember, at AT&T Park in San Francisco, like a stadium show. And you're just like, we're doing this with me as the only the only production crew member and like a guitar tech. And I'm like running back and forth between the stage and front of house. I mean, it was crazy. Wow. And then dealing with the guest lists and like all that stuff. And so eventually we got a tour manager that handled all that stuff, and then I handled the production. And then as we went on, we hired monitor engineer and stage techs and lighting guy and all that, you know, to do it right. But it's tricky. So all that said is, like, in the beginnings, and as artists are getting into touring, like, it's there a lot of times they'll take on somebody that can wear multiple hats, and because I was able to do that, I became valuable in that way. And so that's kind of how that goes. Yeah.
Like, how would you say, I mean, how do you kind of get these multiple hats? You know what I mean? Like, if somebody were looking to do something like that, like,
I mean, there's a lot of ways to get into it. I would say that my way of getting into it was a bit unconventional.
Right.
And that just comes from living in LA for so long and being connected with a lot of people, being a musician, and like not just a musician, but a front man that toured and was the proprietor of bands. That, you know, having that background, you know, there's lots of people in production that have that background, but something about my version of it just kind of, it led to me kind of climbing the ladder quicker in some ways. I bypassed a lot of things. But a lot of people that get into touring production, I mean, you know, I think everybody really has their own mix of the story, but there's if you're working on stage crews and stuff, there's production houses that are local that you can get involved with, you know, like Claire Global or you know, Rat Sound or you know, some of these companies around LA. I mean, everybody's got them in different towns, and to get in with those, you can just work on stage crews and stuff and kind of work your way up as your strengths become known, you know, and they need to fill positions. And you know, production coordination is a bit more of an administrative thing in a lot of ways. A lot of emails and spreadsheets and phone calls and stuff like that. But anybody that has a knack for that stuff, that's organized, that you know, understands all the inner workings of how touring goes, you know, can be good at that. And it's really about who you know. I mean, that's literally what I've found for me. And I mean, you know, everybody says that, but it's true. You know, it's so, you know, I think if you have a good attitude, you're good and efficient at your job, and, you know, cover all your bases and don't screw up too much, and, you know, and learn from your mistakes. I mean, you can have a great career doing all that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, you said one thing when you were like kind of doing everything, you kind of got your ass handed to you. Any like learning experiences just to like share from that time that might help other people?
I don't want to go back into some of the bad one, but
I'm
kidding. But I mean, it's just the biggest thing I would say, getting your ass in, it's just the overwhelm where it's like all just starts to pile up on you, and you're behind on things, and you just don't have enough time in the day to get. It's like a bandwidth problem, you know. For me, anyways. I mean, I just was always constantly trying to refine like checklists and spreadsheets and stuff to get it all out of my head. It's to me that I don't work well if I have to just have it all going on in my head, because there's so much, even just aside from that immediate job, that is always constantly going on, that if I just left it in my head, I'd go crazy. So it's always about just creating checklists or things that I can look at to see if I covered everything. And that kind of stuff for me has always been huge. And I think for anybody really, you know, how you do your to-do lists and checklists. And then from there, it's just, I mean, again, it's understanding the inner workings of what's needed, what's important, what the artists in particular need, and what makes the difference for them to do a good show, be comfortable, be confident, and what, you know, be able to walk out on stage and feel like they're being taken care of. And, you know, being a people person, I guess, helps with that as well. So, you know, it's a lot of different factors that play into that, but there's a lot of people that are great at it, you know? Yeah.
That's what's up. You said several things that I think were key. I think one of them was it's about who you know. And I think, I mean, that term gets thrown around a lot, but I think people still underestimate it though. Like I feel like people still, I mean, the value of going to things like Monday and like connecting with other artists, because you never know like down the road what collaboration or connection might lead to something. You
Absolutely.
Know what I mean? So
yeah, and there's lots of great stories throughout the history of Monday of people getting connected and it leading to one thing or another, whether it's somebody getting, you know, a record deal or a tour or something, to we've had people that got married. You know,
wow.
They met each other. Ari Hurston,
Hurston
and Annabelle Lee. They met at Monday, and and they are married now. You know?
Wow.
And so, but I mean, lots of having a community like that is an opportunity for people to meet and get to know each other and get to know just the personalities within the community, and then you get to see the talent that exists in the community. But you know, that stuff is gold. I find that over the generations of people that I've known, just the friendships that have come from that is so huge because you're just always looking for your people. And on a tour and in a professional setting, you're looking for your people too. Like a part of touring that's so important that I've learned is it's all about the team you create. And it can be one person that can throw off that whole thing and just poison the well. And so to be able to be a part of a great team, you know, what that means is you got to be on time. You got to have your shit together, know your job, know your lane, you know, have a good attitude and know how to check yourself and just be a hustler, you know, and if you can do all those things and be a good hang so that when you're on the bus together, you know, everybody's getting along, like that's gold. And I've seen so many crews that are just not that. And it makes for, because you're giving your life to this. Yeah. When you're on the road, you know, certain tours especially, you know, you're living with these people day in and day out. And that is your life for that part of that time. And you know, you don't want to be in some dysfunctional misery, you know, on the road. It's terrible. So I would say, you know, anybody that wants to do that stuff, you know, check yourself and make sure you're a good hang and know how to play, you know, work well with others and be cool. Yeah. And you can have a career doing it. And I mean, I've know so many great people, and we all get to do so many really cool things that it's like it's living the dream, you know, on a level. Yeah. Sometimes it's living somebody else's dream, depending. You know, sometimes, but it's living the dream, man. You know, I've been very fortunate to do a lot of cool things.
Awesome, man. So we've talked about, you know, Monday here some, but I want to talk more about that, like just more about kind of how that started and, you know, like what was going on at the time, and it's been going for, was it like 11 years now?
Almost 12. 12 in January.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah, you know what's funny is just this morning, Mike Stockstill texted me a video. I can show it to you. It's a video of the very first Monday. Wow. And him playing. And I'm introducing him and talking about this is a new night and the first Monday, and we're going to be doing, and I talk about what it's all about. And it was a trip to watch. I literally got that today. Wow. I had no idea that video existed.
Hey everybody, thank you for coming out to the very first Monday, new night. Happy New Year. Happy 2013. Hope you guys had a good holiday. So we're gonna keep this going for a while and see what we can make of it. But your support at the beginning means a whole lot. But the whole idea is that we just want to create a community night where we can showcase a whole lot of really great artists that I book here at Room 5, and just have a good time with it and take the pressure off the artists to bring everybody out. And the whole idea is to just get everybody to just regularly come out on Mondays, just knowing that you're going to see a whole bunch of great music. That way I can just book the artists I want to book and not have to be pressuring them all the time.
So talk more about that, like just like starting it and like, you know, kind of what's, you know, kind of the journey over the last, you know, 11, 12 years.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been inspired by the artist community in LA, and I attribute that to, you know, there's always key people that connect that in any music scene. And I came from the Atlanta music scene prior to living in LA and got to experience that. And then when I got to LA, it was just about finding your people. And with Hotel Cafe and Room 5, we found a lot of the stuff that we connected with, and just good people and amazing people that are still dear friends of mine to this day. So when I took over the Songwriter in the Round thing, I mean, that was a really cool night. It was like 4 artists on stage, all taking turns doing songs, Songwriter in the Round format, you know, and I would host, so I'd play every week, and everybody kind of sit in on each other's stuff, sing harmonies, you know, here and there. And then the thing is that got to be a lot of work to put together, because you kind of, for those things to work well and get people in the room, you've got to have the right combinations of people a little bit. You can't just put anybody in there. Yep. And then on top of that, I was booking all the rest of the calendar, and it got frustrating because you're always having to deal with the bottom line and making sure there's business coming to the venue. And so it was always this thing of I'd get tons of submissions and people that I thought were really great, but they didn't have the draw. And And so I couldn't book them. And that was always frustrating because it's like, man, I just want to book the stuff that's good and not worry about all that so much, you know, but it's a business and you have to do that. So I just wanted to create one night a week that I could just make it about who's good and make the music, you know, make it about the music. And so I really thought long and hard. I didn't want to disrupt the Songwriter in the Round series, but it was just becoming harder for me to put together the right nights. And I wanted to include so many other people, but they wouldn't have been necessarily right for that at the time for the Writers in the Round. So I decided to come up with this. I had been doing a lot of events, like benefits and things like that, where I would have multiple artists. And I got really pretty good at organizing those. So I decided to do a mini version of that weekly, which was kind of insane at first to think about it. But I booked 10 artists playing 3 songs each, which I thought was a great way to do it, because in 3 songs you can really get a feel for an artist, but it's also, if you're not feeling the artist, after 3 songs you got somebody else. You know, and so it was a great way. Like, I feel like any artist, when they're coming up, you should be able to tell your story of who you are and what your music's about in 3 songs. And so that became that whole thing. And it took a long time to get off the ground. I mean, it was great from the get-go in terms of what I was booking. But in terms of getting the people to understand what was happening, I mean, it took a while. And then Room 5, which was a great room for all that. It was so great. But you know, we always we're butting heads with the owners and their vision of how they thought things needed to be done. We more or less took the venue into our own hands, and it was like, it was carrying the whole place. There was a big restaurant downstairs that just wasn't really, you know, doing the business it needed to. But Room 5, a lot of nights was just jammed. And But in 2016, they decided to sell it, and that was just the end of that. And coincidentally, we had been talking at Hotel Cafe already. I mean, I'd been working there for a while already, and they were talking for years about opening up the second stage, because it was a recording studio long time ago. There was an offices back there, but it was really just an empty space that was like a green room almost, you know, for some of us. But it wasn't used. And so we had talked about opening it up to be a venue for a long time, but then finally they went for it in 2015, built it out, and then in 2016 it opened. So Room 5 closed January of 2016, and second stage opened February of 2016.
Oh, wow.
And the whole time when we were talking about opening it up, Marco, the owner and booker of Hotel Cafe, was like, let's do Monday here. And so that was how that happened. And once it moved to Hotel Cafe, it just kind of gave it a whole new platform and awareness through that community. It started to really click, you know, and it's been thriving really ever since. So
nice, super cool. Talk about because you said it took a while for Monday to kind of get off the ground, and I feel like, you know, a lot of times people, when things aren't going well immediately, they just kind of abandon ship. And,
dude, I almost quit doing it many times.
Wow.
I mean,
So what kept you?
So many times. There were different people involved that really helped keep it going. One person in particular is my dear friend who's passed since, unfortunately, Michael Doman. He was this incredible, mysterious, like, cool artist that just Monday became his home and his place to do his thing. And he had a whole back history that he kept as a mystery, you know, but he was just this incredible talent, like one of my favorite artists. And I would have him come down and play anytime he wanted to, and that just became his safe space to play. And he really understood the importance of it. And so it became a thing where when I was dealing with a lot of other stuff and going in and out of town, he was like, I want to help you keep this going. So he and I worked together, and he's the one that actually came up with the whole idea of the guest host thing. And prior to that, I was putting all the nights together and hosting, and that time I was around. But then once I started going out of town, like, you know, he would take over, and he would just work with other people that he thought were like good community leaders that could help put together their own version of the party.
Yeah.
And so he really was pivotal in helping keep it going in times where I just couldn't give it the attention. And then it just became this thing that worked because it kind of refreshed itself each week with a different host. So, because there was a whole different crop of people. There would be some crossover, but then there'd be new people that we'd never heard before. And that just became a big part of keeping it going. And especially once we moved it to Hotel Cafe, that just was everything for how I was able to maintain it. And now that I've been touring for as long as, it's essential to keep it going. So I always looked at it from there as like this Monday to me is always a community project.
Yeah.
That the more I tell people, like, the more we participate together, we can do more with this,
Absolutely.
That being said, it doesn't always work that way, and I end up pulling the whole thing like, come on guys, let's do it. But I think the more people become aware, and the more, nowadays everybody regards it pretty highly to where it's a little bit easier. So there's always more I want to do with it, but I think to be able to maintain it where it's at right now, I still am in charge of all of it, but having those guest hosts, that's the key to it all. And that's what really saved it, to be honest, because I would have shut it down.
Wow, that's crazy. And that's honestly been like a huge joy for me, like doing the guest hosting job, thing. Man. Like, thank you, man. Like, but it's been super fun. I've enjoyed it a lot. And the community and like people, it's like it's on a lot of artists like wish list to play Monday, and so it's cool whenever somebody tells me like, oh yeah, I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and it's like that's really cool, you know what I mean? And so it's just like,
and I love that. I'm so proud of what it's become, and the fact that it is a launching pad for people. What a cool thing to have a night like that you can easily get plugged into. Granted, getting into it is really, it's a timing thing, and the talent has to be there on a level, and so I can't have everybody, and that is tough. But aside from that, just if you come into town and you've got a certain level of talent and you get in on that, it can be the way to meet a lot of people that can pave your way to making LA happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
because you need that in a town like this.
100%. 100%. We've touched on it a little before, but like that connection and like having those people to collaborate with, and who are just going to be cool and just be fun to collaborate with.
Yeah.
And, it's so huge. It's so huge.
Collaboration in music to me is where there's a lot of magic that comes from that, and I don't think people use that idea enough of coming together and what we can do together, it can start to sound hippy dippy, but it's like, it's true, man.
100%.
We can do a lot on our own, but you come together in the right ways and you can really elevate each other, and magic can happen. I've watched it happen many, many, many times. And there's something really cool when things just come together the right way. And that's what that night is all about. It's about putting music lovers into a room together, putting like-minded people together, putting talent together, and just making it this anti like LA stigma kind of thing. Like it's just it matters to what the focus is. And that's another thing to mention is, to my own detriment, Monday, I say that as a joke, but Monday can't be about the money.
Right.
It's the only way that it works the way that it does. And, I first it was free. It was donation based for years, but then, it's like we need to charge a little something, especially when we had certain costs that we needed to cover. So, I'm like $5 at the door. I don't want this to be anything that anybody's going to be like, oh, I can't afford it this week. It's like, no, you need to be there. It's just freaking $5.
Right. Yeah.
And you're going to see some of the best music for $5 that you'll see anywhere in town.
Absolutely.
And I just didn't want it to be about that. And also because I didn't want it to be too much of I didn't want anybody profiting off of it, because everybody's lending their talents and time to this thing. And if one person's getting paid, everybody should get paid. And there's not going to be enough money to pay 11 artists properly, you know? And so it's like, well, let's just take the money off the table then, so that, I mean, we're just covering costs of the operations of the place, you know, and then anything else we can put into the other things that support the whole thing. But it's not about anybody making a profit, you know? And you know, there's a point where I as a promoter and putting these things on, I'm like, you know, I could really stand to put some nights together where I actually make some money.
Right.
You know, and there are copy nights of Monday that do. And, you know, some of those people are making a lot of money. I just still won't do it for that reason, at least not that night, you know. And any nights that we do on other nights that are built off of like pulling artists and packaging them together to go promote a night, you know, sure, that can be, but Monday had to be about that. And what I've found is because of that, that's what creates this energy about it, because it's about the right things. It's about music, it's about the community, it's about just bringing good people together. And I've had so many people come to that night that discover it, you know, it's a new night that they discover, or they've been going forever, and they just talk about how important it is that they found a place that's like their people and like their community, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you mentioned the money thing. I mean, I tend to like, you know, just not focus on money really in general, you know, like, and just try to, you know, make it about the music and, you know, kind of let the chips fall where they may. That's kind of how I tend to be. But it's like you said, when you go to a place like Monday and it's not about that, then you find other people that are, you know what I mean, that are down to play and just down to like collaborate.
It makes it about the music.
Because
the minute you make it about money, it changes the focus. It changes where you're putting your energy. I mean, it's a whole thing, and it's our whole lives with everything are about that these days. You know, it's why social media is the way that it is now, because the only way to pay for all that stuff and the only way that people to line their pockets is advertising. So it's all built around like, you know, the money drive of it all, and music needs to be about music. In 100%. My opinion. I mean, there's always going to be that money-driven side of the music industry. Sure. But my biggest thing that I'm always pounding the pavement about is like, that shouldn't be just what the music industry is. Like, the music industry has to have many levels. There's an artistic part of the music industry and about music that when you make it about the money, gets compromised and cheapened. And that's what I see happening all over the place. But it doesn't mean that there's not talented people and there's not great music. But I do find that some of my favorite music that I find on Spotify or whatever are people that really can't necessarily like make a living doing it. And it doesn't mean that they're any less talented. I mean, some of them are ridiculously talented. But you know, and so I hate that that's a problem. I love to see the economics of music work to where there could be money put into the artist side, the artistic side more, and it not be so money driven. And you know, but I could go on and on. But that's another reason why I like to make this about that, because there's lots of stuff out there where they're showcasing artists that the criteria for them being showcased is like how many numbers they have on social media, or some credit of some kind that they have, or who they are. Maybe they're an actor or an actress that's playing music, and you know, there's all sorts of different things that can be the deciding factor for somebody being showcased or having being a part of certain opportunities that really is not about the music. It's about something else, and I want to make things that are about the music.
Absolutely. Also, earlier you mentioned kind of the anti-LA vibe, because so many people have said to me, even coming into a Monday, like maybe they just moved into town and they had a certain picture idea of what LA would be, and they, you know, like somebody said to me just like the other day, like I thought it was just going to be like super cutthroat and like everybody was just going to be, you know, and then they come into a Monday and it's not that at all. It's like, it's, you know, everybody's like getting along and everybody's like looking out for each other, and it's like collaboration, community. And I've had, like I said, multiple people say to me, wow, like this is not what I imagined when I, was about to move to LA or whatever, so it's like, it's super cool.
Yeah. I mean, I'm proud that it has that, that reputation, but it's just funny to me because like the cutthroat thing, like I get it. I think healthy competition is great, but some of the stuff that people are talking about when they talk about that and the bad reputation that LA gets, it's like I've been, I mean, you can go back to my beginnings of LA and I've been one of the people just saying like, it's all in how you experience it.
Yeah.
And you're going to have that because LA has everything.
Right.
And good, bad, ugly, everything. And so if you dig deep enough, think about it. Like everybody wants to come, everybody that has talent and like something to offer the culture, like they come to a place like LA to find their people. So if that's going on, then there's a concentration of those talented, amazing personalities and people that are there. It's just you got to find out where they are.
Right.
And so when I first moved to LA, it was kind of everybody out for themselves. And I just thought it was weird, and then the more I met people that were my people or like-minded people and that just good music and people that love good music, it's like there were always little like certain pockets where somebody was bringing that together. And I just would gravitate to those things, and then I became one of those people. And I saw, it's like, okay, so everybody does these nights where there's like multiple acts playing on a night, and there's these 45-minute sets that you're spending all this money and time promoting. And then as soon as you're off the stage, that crowd clears out and the next crowd comes in. I'm just like, why are we doing it like this? Why not put a whole night together where everybody is like cohesive to where it's like a whole crowd that wants to see the whole night, and it's not just go to see that 45-minute show and then, hey, I got to go across town and go see that 45-minute show. So I just started putting together, like I'd find all my talented friends and be like, let's put a night together. And I would do a night at, wherever. It was like the Gig on Melrose back in the day, Molly Malone's, Hotel Cafe, the Mint, and that's kind of what got me into doing all this. And because it made sense to me. Yeah. It's like, you want to go out to a night and go to one place and see all the people that love music too, and see some great talent, and it's like create that. So I've studied this stuff all the time because I'm so fascinated with what makes things work in the history of music, right? There's always key people that are bringing it together, because left on its own, the actual industry itself and how music works and the industry works, like it doesn't just happen on its own. That these things, it's always people like a Clive Davis or David Geffen or so many different people like that are the ones that are the exception. They're saying, no, I see some. I mean, David Geffen, I always heard about him doing the Mondays at the Troubadour, right? So they had the Hootenanny nights at the Troubadour, which is a lot of what inspired Monday for me. And what that was, watching his documentary, there's a great documentary about him called Becoming David Geffen, or I forget, something like that. Anyway, and I knew that he did those nights. I knew he was responsible for that, and with some other people. But what I didn't realize was that what it was an open mic night that the Troubadour had, and he saw that, okay, I'm just gonna take over this open mic night and book all these people that he's working with that he wants everybody to see. And like he had the Eagles as the backing band, and like, Linda Ronstadt and like all these people, and everybody from Laurel Canyon that was hanging out in Laurel Canyon were coming down, Neil Young and everybody, to play on these Mondays that David Geffen. So he was basically just taking over an open mic night, and then it became these Monday nights that were iconic over time, and where Elton John was like first discovered in LA. Like he came and he plugged him into those nights. And so, I pay attention to the fact that there's always these key people, and even today in the stuff that I get to do, there's key people that are above and beyond, that are part of what makes the magic happen, or makes like things happen, and I guess over time I just kind of felt like I could be something of one of those. I could be one of those people in some way, and that's what I've always kind of tried to do, because I realize that, if I'm not doing this, nobody else is necessarily doing it, and that's not exactly true, but on a level it is. And so I just always felt like I should serve as that role in some way, and be a part of that. So,
Nice. Yeah. So you mentioned earlier, not everybody, like you can't book everybody for a Monday. And as I've said before, it's on a lot of artists' wish lists. Like I've, hear a lot of artists say, man, I really wanted to play that for a long time. As a, curator of this night, like what would you say would be some, like, I guess, do's and don'ts for artists like trying to book a Monday, for example?
I mean, here's the thing. It's, I want to give everybody an opportunity. And I always tell everybody, sometimes it takes me a little while, but I listen to everything that's submitted to me. Sometimes I know right away it's not a fit, or it's not ready yet, and I used to respond to everybody, and you just got to understand that it's a lot of work to respond to everybody, especially when you want to make sure that you're picking your words wisely, because I don't want to discourage anyone or take anyone off their game, especially if I might just not have the right perspective that day listening to the stuff, which I do a lot to make sure that I'm in the right headspace, because I have had times in the years of me doing this where I just was in a bad mood and I was saying no to everybody, or I was in a good mood and saying yes to people and being like, oof. But that being said, I mean, it's always been important to me to maintain the reputation of quality, so that at any moment you can come into a Monday and you're going to see a certain level of talent, and it's not going to be compromised, because all it takes is like somebody hears about Monday and they come and they see, and it's just a little below average or feels like a open mic night that is like, it's not my thing, And so I just always wanted to keep the talent level, and now it's like I have such a wealth of people to choose from that I can't afford to plug people in if they're not quite at a certain level of it. So it becomes a subjective thing that, it's opinion based, and my ear is, pretty solid, but like there might be people I pass on that somebody else is a guest host takes a chance on or knows and brings them on, and I'm like, I didn't realize, like, they're great, and that happens. But most of all, I have a pretty good gauge of it. And, I'm always trying to keep regular people that I really want to be seen, like, coming back on as long as they're interested, I want to keep bringing them back. But then I'm always trying to make room for new people, and I constantly have a flow of new people. And more, there's been a lot more new people, and it's been great. But the biggest thing is email me. My email is joel@hotelcafe.com. Send simple email with some links that showcase or show me what your music's going to be like in the performance setting of Monday.
Right.
And I say that to mean, like, if you send me some fully produced track, I may or may not be able to understand what it's going to be like on the stage. Sometimes it's like, okay, you can do all that, but like, what's your performance going to be on stage? And so I always want to see something that's going to give me that, because we're on Mondays, we're not doing tracks and like, that kind of thing. It's just not the vibe. It's about, or mostly about organic music and the raw talent of it all, and the songwriters and the, whatever, the singers. And so, I want to know if it's gonna hold up in that way. Some people can, some people can't. Sometimes I find that by stripping it down, it makes for a really cool take on the performer, and what they can do in the music. So that, and then being patient, because I'll be honest, I'm not always quick at getting back to people, and sometimes it takes me a while to listen to stuff, and everybody just has to understand that for me, I do a lot of things, and I'm keeping this night going at a very low bandwidth for me, but I'm always making sure that I'm listening to everything. And then I just literally at this point just pick out the stuff that I think is great and plug it into a night when I can get around to finding a date that works. So it's a tricky process. Sometimes it's quick. Sometimes I'll get an email that day and I'll be like, this person's great. And then I have a slot the following week and I plug them in. Other times it takes 6 months or more. And I feel bad for that because I don't want to discourage people, but that's where like persistence, is good. And even if people that I'm going to pass on, if I see they're emailing me, then I'll get back and just be like, hey, keep sending me new stuff. But right now, I'm going to pass. So, and I hate having those conversations, but you have to. It's part of the whole thing. And I'm always about watching people evolve and grow. And I've seen people that I really was not a fan of and that turned into great artists that I really respect a lot, So, and that's part of it too.
Yeah, absolutely. Like putting in that work to get to, a certain level.
Yeah.
It's absolutely.
And that's what it's about. Like, people that if you want to play a Monday, keep coming out to the Mondays because you support those nights. And, not only is it just helping the whole thing keep going, but it's also you're going to learn and be inspired, and you never know what's going to inspire you that might really like take you or a turn for the better where you're going to grow as an artist and or meet somebody that's going to collaborate with you and really bring out something from your music or co-writes or whatever, so I think supporting the community and really like just trying and studying like what is it about these artists that makes them on this level that I can strive to be, that's that healthy competition thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like a couple things like you mentioned earlier, just like being able to see it live or see what it would be like live. Like I think that's key. Like I get out to a lot of things, so I see, a lot of people live, but yeah, it's definitely, like as far as like, who I'm booking, it's usually like, 90% of the time, 95% of the time, even it's like, I had to see it live, you know what I mean? Like, because, a track on Spotify or whatever, like it's, it could be auto-tune, it could be like whatever, you know what I mean? And so it's like, you really can't like get a sense of like what it would be live, that way. So
yeah, there's a lot of ways to fool people these days.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it's kind of crazy. Now they even have live auto-tune going on all the time, which is like, I come from days when you never think of doing anything like it, but whatever. But I think it's important to me anyways to highlight the people that have that real like special talent that doesn't need all that assistance and things, that's I am open-minded to all things at this point for sure. And I there's cool EDM music. I'm not really an EDM guy, but there's some really cool and creative stuff that I think is amazing, and it's all on how you do it. But like, I think that, I guess where I'm coming from is, there's a lost art of like people with the real raw talent and the music of, back in the day and everything that we all regard and love. Like there was a special skill set to that kind of stuff. And I don't feel like that should be lost. And I think it's great that people can express themselves the way that they can now and be able to make something that is listenable, that sounds good, even if they don't quite have that skill set. But I don't like that it overshadows sometimes, especially this day and age, it overshadows the real talent that's out there. And so, I like to be able to bring that talent out of the woodwork. So whenever I see that, and that's why I feel that way, it's like, show me what you're going to be like live, because, what I don't want is somebody that just relies a lot on autotune. They show up on my stage and they can't sing in tune to save their life. And just we don't want that.
Right. Yeah. Another thing you mentioned was like actually coming, checking it out, kind of studying the vibe, studying what people who are already on the stage are doing, and just like being a part of the community, I think is huge. And I feel like a lot of artists like underestimate that, or I get a lot of, I get emails about playing a Monday or playing Writers Round LA, which I also host, and it's like, but they never been to either of them. You know what I mean? And
see
it's like,
that,
well,
you're missing the point when you do that, and I mean, you got to participate, and it's like, this is, then, because otherwise you're telling me this is all about you, and that may be how you're operating, but like. Again, like, there's the community of all this, and for music to work, everybody needs to participate. It can't just be this like, hey, look at me, like, out for yourself kind of thing. It's just you're missing a whole part of the experience and what makes the magic of all of it happen, and what you want at the end of the day. So I think that's a big mistake people make. And it actually really bothers me sometimes when people are hitting me up to play Monday and they've never been to one and they don't even understand the format of it. It's like, okay, I get it. Sometimes you're looking through, maybe somebody just says you should try to play this Monday and you're coming through town. I get it.
Yeah.
But get to know what it's all about, because that's part of what you're going to also gain from it by understanding what it's all about. So it's funny how that happens, isn't it?
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, I tend to definitely I just like to check out a lot of things in general, but especially if it's something I'm interested in playing, I'll go check it out first before I even hit up anybody or anything.
What
like
if it's
that.
something you don't want to even get involved in?
Right. Yeah. So just checking things out. Checking things out, get the vibe, meet the person that's put it together, meet some of the other people that were playing that night. That I think that's all just like huge and important. You know. So
and being inspired and meeting people, I mean, that's as much a part of it as anything. I mean, I can't tell you, just me running those nights, I mean, I'll go home and just be like, man, I got to write something, and I mean, that's what you want.
1,000%. I mean, there's been plenty of nights where like I'm putting together a Monday and I'm like, holy shit, this lineup is crazy. I don't want to be the weak link. Let me practice. Let me put it. You know what I mean? And I'm putting in a lot of extra work myself because I don't want to be the one that's like bringing the night down. So I'm like, shit,
and that's that healthy competition thing.
100%.
It's important. You need that as an artist. It helps you push yourself to get better.
Absolutely. Another thing I wanted to ask you about is like, I'm not a guitar player, so I may not be articulating this properly, but like when I listen to like your songs, like the chords are just like, they're just different. Like I hear a lot of like, I hear a lot of music at the, the open mics between Monday and the open mics that I do. And like, so I hear a lot of songs played on guitar, but like when I hear your songs, they sound very unique, like very different. It's like a different sound. So like kind of what I guess goes into like, what's like, I guess your kind of creative process in terms of like when you're writing music? I mean,
yeah, it's interesting because like a lot of the music that I'm inspired by and that I write, it can sometimes even be a little bit of an oddball in the terms of a lot of the other stuff that comes through Monday. But at the same time, I mean, all my influences are, they're a lot of people's influences too. But I guess for me, I'm always looking for, as a guitar player, I'm just looking for something more interesting, and the colors of different like chords and tones, like, different types of chords, where it's like I'm always looking for how I can mess it up a little bit and find some tension or something that just has a little bit more, brings something out of it more that fits whatever I'm trying to convey in the song, and so yeah, I mean, I love rock and roll and the blues and stuff like that, but I love the artists that know how to play with tension and just cool things that it's just a vibe, and I mean, I don't just gravitate to just regular basic chords, but then sometimes that's exactly what the song needs, and so I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm just, it comes to me however it comes to me, and when I'm playing guitar, I'm just like, I mess with the chord until I find something where I'm like, oh, there it is. And so, yeah, I think everybody's got their own version of that kind of thing, or at least what they've, what their focus is, you know. You can do a lot with just straight up cowboy chords, and write a great song. Yeah. And if you have great lyrics and a great voice or something like that, that could be all you need. Yeah. But then other people I don't know. That's what's great about music, is everybody has their own thing that they gravitate to, and that they're influenced by, that they bring into the music, and it makes it unique. And that's great.
I feel like tension is a mechanism that maybe not a lot of artists take advantage of enough. I feel like that's something that I've kind of more recently started to play with in my music personally. But I feel like I want to definitely experiment more with that. So I feel like that was interesting.
Well, think of it this way too. Like, I always like to talk about how, the 4 on the floor beat, right? It's a heartbeat. Yeah. And a lot of, all the house music is 4 on the floor. So then, the moment in the house music where it's like doing that thing where it's like escalating, waiting for the big drop, that's tension. Yeah. And it's all building it up so that when that moment happens where it drops, it hits you and you feel something, and that's a big, a big version of what I mean by it. But it's like, you can see that happen in all sorts of music. And the 4 on the floor thing, I think, is interesting, because if you can go to any style of music and find 4 on the floor. Bluegrass, stomp blues, there's all sorts of different versions of that. And the reason why it's significant is I find that the 4 on the floor beat is it's this thing that, because it's a heartbeat, I believe, people gravitate to it so quickly. And it's like, without realizing, you'll watch the people that just, like, music starts playing and they just start dancing or whatever, and you're like, check it, because I guarantee 9 times out of 10 there's some version of a 4 on the floor thing happening. Which, my ex-girlfriend was talking to me about writing a 4 on the floor album where it's just all songs it's like, maybe that's where I'll find success. But my point was not so much the 4 on the floor, although that, I feel like that is an interesting thing to look at. But the tension, that thing in the house music where it builds up and bam, and it can be in any different thing. It can be like, that's what's so cool about the blues is, like, you have those notes in the blues scale that are like part of just a major scale, but then there's the blue note that happens. It's that little extra half step that you can add, and it's tension. That's and it gives it flavor, and so I don't know. I think it makes things more interesting, and they can, bring out emotions so it's fun to play with that kind of stuff.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. Joel Eckels, thank you so much for being here, man.
It's good talking to you.
Yeah, man. Amazing conversation, man. I know a lot of people get a lot out of it. So, man, thank you so much for being here, brother. Yeah, have a good day.
Yeah,
man.
Good luck with this.
Yeah, thank you, man. Peace. Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Broadway, the host. If you got something out of the episode, definitely go ahead and hit the like button. Also subscribe and turn on the notifications so you can get notified whenever we drop new episodes. If there was something specific that you learned or found interesting, put that in the comments. Also, if there was something that you thought you were going to learn more about, wanted to hear more about, and you didn't, put that in the comments as well. We can use that to make these episodes better going forward. Thank you again for checking out. They're good at that shit.